It's been a lot of fun. Written and read by Brian Johnston.
I started taking a serious interest in the game of cricket about the age of 8. My brother Michael had a net in our Hertfordshire garden. One day he threw me a ball and shouted, "I'm Jack Hearn, you're Patsy Hendren." And from that moment on, Patsy was my hero. Each morning I'd rush to the daily paper to see how many runs he'd made for Middlesex or England. I even wrote to him for his autograph without enclosing a stamped addressed envelope, and he replied by return with 3 autographs instead of 1. He used to sign Hendren with 2 short lines under the second N, and to this day I do the very same thing. I gradually developed into quite a good wicket-keeper and got into the first 11 during my last 2 years at Temple Grove Prep School at Eastbourne. 2 years earlier, we'd had a star batsman called Barda Minor. He used to score 100 in nearly every school match. This not only meant that we won most of our matches, but the whole school was excused prep. So Barda became a very popular figure and would, I'm sure, have been a test cricketer had he not lost both his legs in an air crash before the war. But even so, as Group Captain Douglas Barda, DSO and Bar, DFC and Bar, he became Temple Grove's most distinguished old boy. In my second year at Temple Grove, my father was tragically drowned while we were on holiday at Bude in Cornwall, where we always went for our summer holidays. And after his death, things were not so good financially. For the next 8 years or so, our family became a wandering tribe, spending 2 years in Dorset, 5 in Herefordshire, and ending up, rather strangely perhaps, back at Bude. Our changed financial position made it necessary for me to try for a scholarship at Eton, where I was destined to join my 2 brothers. For 2 days I tried desperately to cope with the examination papers, but I failed hopelessly, and had to take the common entrance, and even then only succeeded in taking middle fourth, the 3rd bottom form. Over the next 5 years at Eton, I enjoyed some of the happiest times of my life and made many close friends and countless acquaintances among the boys and masters, beaks as they were known there, and most of these have remained so ever since. I joined my second brother Christopher in the house of R. H. de Montmorency, where we shared a room, my eldest brother Michael having left to go to a crammer. Monty was a kind and friendly man who had been an international golfer and had got blues for both golf and cricket when up at Oxford. He was married and had 2 attractive daughters. The elder Kathleen used to wake us up as she returned in the wee small hours from parties in London, often with boyfriends driving an old Bentley with a strap round the bonnet. My one and only disappointment at Eton was my failure to get into the cricket 11. In my last year, a boy called Bearline, who had kept wicket for the school for the last 2 years, decided to stay on for another summer, although he was over 19 years old before the half started. Naturally, for a time, I felt miserable about the whole thing, though everyone was very kind and sympathetic, especially our school coach, George Hurst, the famous Old Yorkshire and England all-rounder. He had a sweet disposition and was loved by all the boys. I used to keep wicket to his bowling, and once got a stumping on the leg side off him, much to our mutual satisfaction. After 2 years, my housemaster Monty retired. Our new man was an old Wycomist who years before had made 100 against Eton in the annual match. A red-haired man called A.C. Hewson. His face was completely purple, as he was said to have 1 skin less than anyone else. He was a bachelor and a really wonderful person and as near the perfect housemaster as could be. He had a great sense of humour, was kind and understanding, and I owe him as big a debt as anyone else in my life. By the time I was due to leave Eton at the end of the 1931 summer half, I still had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had a feeling that I ought to go into the family coffee business, as my elder brother Michael had gone off to farm in Canada, and the other brother, Christopher, was up at Oxford prior to going into the 14th 20th Hussars. Mr. Hewson persuaded me to go to Oxford while I sorted myself out. So I went up to New College, where my father had been 31 years before. I doubt whether I really passed the rather cursory entrance examination, but in those days the family connection was all important and made entry practically certain. At Oxford I read for my degree in history. I averaged around 1 lecture a day and read books suggested by my tutor, for whom I had to write 1 essay a week. Looking back, I feel ashamed of the small amount of work I...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?